The film begins with a man walking through a bar with multiple dead bodies on the ground, having been shot in the head. He slowly makes his way upstairs, hearing someone begging for his life. He passes more bodies, making his way to the door of the room where the begging man is. An abrupt sound is heard and the begging stops. The next scene takes place about 30 years ago at a place called the Harbor Neuroscience Institute in New Hampshire. It's a big beautiful home in a forested area. Two young boys are sitting in a living room. One is sitting calmly in a chair, and the other unboxes a puzzle and rapidly starts putting it together. The boy with the puzzle is shaking and murmuring to himself. A young girl is also in the room with a caregiver who is trying to put her shoes on. The young girl screams and smacks her own head and is unable to communicate. The boy quickly assembles the puzzle but starts screaming inconsolably when one piece is missing, repeating over and over that he has to finish the puzzle. The young girl has stopped screaming and reaches over to pick up the piece that had fallen under the table and hands it to the young boy, and they look directly at each other. The boy completes the puzzle, revealing that he has assembled it upside down, without seeing the image of Muhammad Ali to guide him. In the adjacent room, a psychologist is speaking to the parents of the two boys. There is a sign on the refrigerator with simple drawings of 6 stick figure faces: happy, angry, sad, etc. They discuss the puzzle boy's sensitivity to bright light and loud noises. He is also stubborn and fixates on things, like wearing only one t-shirt, which the psychologist explains is due to a tactile sensitivity. He is also likely to channel his anxiety into repetitive behaviors like shaking, tapping his fingers and talking to himself. He tells them that the boy will likely always have problem with things like maintaining eye contact or making friends. The mother explains that the father is in the military, which means they move frequently, so the boy hasn't been able to make friends anyway, leaving his younger brother as the only friend he has. The father seems uninterested in the conversation. The psychologist suggests that they leave the boy at his institute, where they can teach him coping mechanisms and provide a calm, comforting environment that won't exacerbate his sensitivities. The father says no, telling the psychologist that if the boy is sensitive to light and sound, he needs to be exposed to more light and sound, as the world is not going to accommodate his special needs. In the present day, Christian Wolff is an accountant in his own small practice. He has a few small tics, like tapping his fingers on the desk or blowing on them quickly. He has a very flat effect when speaking, and he doesn't seem very warm or friendly. He is meeting with a farmer and his wife. The farmer is embarrassed that they have fallen on tough times, and his wife gently suggests that they pay their taxes via credit card to buy some more time. She sees Christian seemingly staring at her necklace and asks if he likes it as she made it herself. He responds in a monotone, direct way and says he doesn't like it, but asks if she sells any jewelry she makes. She tells him that she just sells a few at church fairs or to friends but not in any meaningful way. He asks if she has an office she uses to produce her wares, and she keeps insisting that it's just a hobby she does when she's watching TV. He is gently steering them toward declaring it as a home business, telling them the IRS allows the deduction of a certain amount of household expenses when used for business purposes. He subtly suggests to the husband that they declare a large portion of the house as her home office. After more questioning, she says she simply drives her truck to the local craft store to purchase beads, and he corrects her, saying she is driving the company vehicle to purchase business supplies. The farmer and his wife leave in a much happier mood, grateful to Christian for his expertise. The farmer invites Christian to his home for fishing, to which Christian responds flatly that he doesn't fish, but he does shoot. The farmer tells him he has plenty of space for shooting if he'd like to visit them sometime. Christian does visit the farm and sets up cantaloupes with simple faces drawn on, matching the stick figure faces seen in the Harbor Institute. He sets up with a high-powered sniper rifle. The farmer watches through binoculars from the house and claims that the 1,000-foot distance would be impossible for Christian to hit, but Christian shoots them all accurately in quick succession. Meanwhile, Ray King, the director of financial crimes at the Treasury Department, calls a young analyst, Mary Beth Medina, into his office. He credits her with a big investigation, though she demurs and says it was a team effort. He asks why she hasn't applied for an agent position, and she deflects, saying she enjoys her job. Ray shows her what he has on his computer screen, which is Mary Beth's juvenile criminal record. It shows serious charges including assault, drugs and attempted murder. She is shocked as she believed the records to be sealed. He tells her that it's a felony offense to lie on an application to work for the federal government, as she had hidden her past. She asks what he wants. Ray hands her a stack of photographs, which show terrorists, drug cartel leaders, mafia bosses, and other criminal leaders meeting with the same man, who is only seen from behind or partial profile. Ray explains that he is an accountant who works for the world's biggest criminals, as they cannot call HR block when they have a financial problem. He is surprised that the accountant has survived this long, given how dangerous his clientele is. He knows of multiple aliases used by the accountant, including Lou Carroll and Carl Gauss. Ray tells Marybeth that he is retiring soon, and her job is to find out who the accountant is, or he will reveal her criminal past. In Zurich, a man gets into his car in a parking garage. A second man, the assassin, quickly enters the vehicle and calmly pulls out his gun, placing a silencer on it. The first man is dismissive, saying he is kidnapping insurance, so the assassin should just get on with his business quickly. The assassin is surprised at his arrogance. He explains that he was hired to send a message to the man, who is a stockbroker and has been shorting the stocks of the assassin's boss's company. The assassin orders the stockbroker to stop shorting stocks. The man is continually arrogant and dismissive, so the assassin strikes him deftly and repeatedly. The man tries reaching for the gun at one point, but the assassin skillfully deflects him. The man finally submits and asks which company he should stop shorting, as he does it to many companies. The assassin simply tells him to stop shorting all stocks or he'll return to kill him. He exits the car and leaves. Christian drives to his home, which is very bare. He has no art or photos or any decorations in the house. He owns exactly one plate, one fork, one knife, one spoon, and prepares himself dinner. He is highly ritualized in the way he prepares his food. He continuously shows small tics, like blowing on his fingers before picking up his fork. Later in the evening, he goes into his bedroom and turns on a strobe light and loud heavy metal music. He picks up a small wooden rod and uses it to roll on his leg muscles. He is trying to remain calm, subjecting himself to the stressful stimuli until his alarm beeps and it's time to take his Zoloft. Interspersed throughout the film are flashbacks to Christian's childhood. One day his mother leaves their family, as the stress of taking care of the boys, particularly with special needs, is unbearable as the father is never around. Young Christian is screaming and throwing things and punching through walls, while his younger brother watches resentfully. The father is arguing with the mother that she can't abandon her family and tells her to wait a moment. He runs in the house to hold Christian tightly until he calms down. The mother gets into her waiting cab, and the younger brother gives her the middle finger from the window. In present day, Christian is seen talking on the phone with a woman whose caller ID is a smiley face, similar to the ones from the stick figure face diagram referenced earlier. She has a very flat effect as well and is prone to stating emotions or describing her behavior, such as stating deep sigh rather than actually sighing. They are discussing new jobs for Christian. She suggests he take a legitimate job for a company called Living Robotics rather than a criminal assignment that is more dangerous, as she cares for his safety. They also discuss some of his assets, including a Renoir painting and a Pollock painting, that she is trying to sell for him. Christian drives to a storage facility where he keeps a trailer. Inside are his valuable paintings as well as cash, passports, gold bullion, first edition comic books and a storage space for lots of serious weapons. He also has a copy of the stick figure face diagram. He checks on everything periodically and goes on his way. Marybeth's investigation continues, and she is able to figure out that the accountant's known aliases are actually a famous mathematician and Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice in Wonderland, who was also a mathematician and suspected of having Asperger's. She relies on friends in the FBI who use the profile pictures to assemble a suggestion of what his face might look like. They are also able to connect it to an unknown man who attacked a bar that was the base of operations for the Gambino crime family. The man killed the 2 guards standing outside and then entered the home, killing the 7 people inside using their own weapons, including the mafia boss's son, Little Nicky, who was killed with one swift kick to the head. The house was bugged, as the family was being investigated, so there is an audio recording of the attack, including a man begging for his life, linking it to the opening scene. Nothing else can be heard other than the man begging and then the kick. Marybeth manipulates the audio file and is eventually able to isolate a second, very quiet voice that seems to be muttering something repeatedly. She sends this file to experts who tell her that it is a nursery rhyme being repeated over and over again. She explains that the recording was made during a highly stressful event, which makes the expert ask if the person was traumatized as a young child. The flat effect and repetitive nature of the recording, despite a high-stress environment, would indicate that the person has some sort of neurological disorder, such as autism. Another flashback to Christian's childhood shows that the family is living in Indonesia. An older man is teaching the boys to fight and is quite brutal in beating them. The father watches from the side while casually reading a newspaper. The instructor finally says that they are just boys and that's enough training. The father remarks that if they were done, the instructor would be laying on the ground bleeding. Young Christian replies in Indonesian that the instructor should continue. The younger brother is deeply loyal to Christian, though he seems exhausted from the fight as well. Christian visits Living Robotics where he meets with the CFO and the CEO's sister, who is a high-ranking executive of the company. The CFO is clearly put off that an outside financial consultant has been brought in to figure out a major financial discrepancy in the books. He says that a young accountant who didn't know what she was doing stuck her nose into things that weren't her business. He says he's been working with the CEO, Lamar, for 15 years and would never hurt the company. He also claims that the company's records would be far too complex for Christian to decipher, as they manufacture over 100 different products and have 3 different businesses. Christian brushes off his concerns and asks for the documents to be prepared for him. Christian also meets with Lamar, the CEO, who tells him that he, Christian, came highly recommended by someone whose daughter needed the company's advanced prosthetics. Lamar gives him a tour, showing him how their prosthetics have helped the lives of many amputees. Lamar promises to fully cooperate with Christian's investigation and to give him whatever he needs to complete the job. The next day, Christian returns to Living Robotics to find a young woman asleep in the conference room with boxes of files and folders neatly prepared for him. He wakes her and she introduces herself as Dana Cummings, the in-house accountant who found the discrepancies. She tries to offer her assistance to walk him through the files and suggests they have lunch together. Christian, in his somewhat odd demeanor, turns down her offer. He sets about his work, which is highly ritualized. He goes through all the old files and begins writing on the whiteboards and then on the windows of the conference room. He takes a break for lunch and happens to sit near Dana, who is also eating her lunch outside. She notices his dented, steel thermos, and she tries to make small talk with him about why he went into financial consulting. She tries joking with Christian, who is polite but doesn't get jokes. She tells him that she wanted to study art, but her father discouraged this and told her to follow in his footsteps as an accountant, the kind with a nerdy pocket protector, which Christian is also wearing. She tells him the only art her father likes is dogs playing poker, which Christian says he also likes. Christian works through the night and is able to deduce that $61 million is missing from the company. He starts to explain it to Dana, who catches on quickly. The CEO's sister interrupts them and dismisses Dana. She wants to know if Christian has guessed who's responsible for the missing money, to which Christian responds that he doesn't guess. He needs to keep reviewing the documents to figure it out. She expects a full report from him shortly. That night, the CFO of Living Robotics wakes up when he hears a noise downstairs. He heads down and finds the assassin waiting in his kitchen, with 2 henchmen. They sit together and the assassin calmly tells the CFO he should give himself a double dose of insulin, so his death will appear like an accident. Otherwise, they will kill him violently and there might be a struggle, waking his wife, and they would have to kill her too and stage it as a robbery. The CFO tearfully agrees. The next day, Christian arrives at the office of Living Robotics to see all the files being packed up and his work being erased. He is distraught at being unable to finish his investigation. Lamar, the CEO, is upset, believing that his friend, the CFO, killed himself, as he had been giving himself injections for many years and wouldn't have made such a simple mistake. Lamar tells Christian that the CFO killed himself out of guilt for scamming the money, and Lamar says his friend was more important than the money. That night, Christian engages in his usual ritual with the strobe light and loud music, but he is deeply frustrated that he wasn't able to finish his assignment. He hits himself painfully with his wooden rod and is unable to cope with the stimuli. He grabs his medication and forcefully throws it across the room before calming down and picking it up. Another flashback shows Christian in prison, talking with an older man with glasses. The man is very kind to Christian and is trying to coach him in having normal interactions with people, learning to read their emotions from the tone of their voice and their facial expressions. They share a bunk, and late at night, he tells Christian about his clients, who are the criminals mentioned in the beginning of the film. Christian visits the farmer and his wife again, to practice more shooting. As he sets up, he has a flashback to another childhood memory when his family was living in France. His father drives him and his brother to an abandoned alley where 4 teens are hanging around. The teens have been bullying Christian, and his father tells him that he must fight back as people will walk all over him otherwise. Christian gets out of the car and runs up to the bigger teens, beating them up. The younger brother waits in the car, until his father tells him to follow, and he leaps out of the car to help Christian. Thanks for watching part 1. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, and click here to watch part 2.